There's a particular kind of silence that most people never notice. In the digital world, there exists a group of people who watch from the shadows. They have accounts but never use them. They scroll through endless feeds but never hit share. And if you've ever wondered what drives someone to remain invisible in a world obsessed with visibility, you're about to discover something fascinating about human psychology. Because choosing not to post isn't about lacking something to say. It's not about being antisocial or technologically challenged. It's about operating from a completely different psychological framework than the rest of the digital world. Most people assume that everyone wants to be seen, wants to be heard, wants to broadcast their thoughts and experiences to the world. But there's a subset of the population that finds the entire concept of social media posting fundamentally uncomfortable. Not because they're hiding something dark or mysterious, but because their minds process sharing differently. Psychologically speaking, these individuals often exhibit what researchers call low self-monitoring behavior. Unlike high self-monitors who constantly adjust their presentation based on social cues and audience expectations, low self-monitors tend to behave more consistently across different situations. They're less concerned with impression management and more focused on authentic self-expression. In a digital world designed for performance, the most authentic choice might be not to perform at all. Think about what social media posting actually requires. Every post is a micro-performance. You choose the angle, filter the lighting, craft the caption, select the hashtags, time the publication. Each element is a decision about how you want to be perceived. For some minds, this process feels natural, even enjoyable. For others, it feels like wearing a costume that never quite fits. People who don't post often describe the experience of crafting a social media update as mentally exhausting. They'll write something, delete it, rewrite it, question their motives, wonder if it sounds authentic. Eventually, they abandon the entire endeavor, not because they lack confidence, but because the gap between their internal experience and any possible external representation feels unbridgeable. There's a psychological concept called the spotlight effect. It's the tendency to overestimate how much others notice and judge our behavior. Most social media users have learned to navigate this by adopting a kind of selective blindness to judgment. They post anyway. But non-posters often experience the spotlight effect more intensely. They imagine every word being analyzed, every photo being critiqued, every choice being questioned. This isn't necessarily about low self-esteem. Many non-posters have perfectly healthy confidence levels in face-to-face interactions. Instead, it's about a different relationship with attention itself. They often prefer earned attention over requested attention. They'd rather be noticed for something they accomplished in the real world than for something they broadcasted online. They value recognition that comes naturally through their actions, rather than recognition they've actively sought through posting. Consider the paradox of digital intimacy. Social media promises connection, but it delivers a strange form of controlled vulnerability. You share personal moments with hundreds or thousands of people simultaneously, most of whom you barely know. For many minds, this feels backwards. True intimacy should be reserved for smaller circles, deeper relationships, more meaningful exchanges. Non-posters often describe feeling overwhelmed by the performative aspect of online friendship. The obligation to like, comment, share, respond. The unspoken social contracts that govern digital interaction. These invisible rules of engagement can feel suffocating to minds that prefer more organic, less structured forms of connection. There's also the question of permanence. Everything you post becomes part of your digital legacy, searchable and screenshotable indefinitely. Non-posters are often acutely aware of this permanence in ways that regular posters have learned to ignore. They understand that contexts change, that humor ages poorly, that opinions evolve, that the version of themselves they are today might embarrass the version they become tomorrow. This awareness isn't paranoia. It's actually a sophisticated understanding of how identity works. We are not fixed beings. We grow, learn, change perspectives, develop new interests, abandon old beliefs. Regular posters have generally made peace with the fact that their digital history will contain contradictions and evolution. Non-posters often find this prospect psychologically uncomfortable. They prefer to keep their growth private to avoid creating a public record of their journey. The psychology of non-posting also involves a different relationship with validation. Social media operates on variable reward schedules. Sometimes your post gets lots of engagement, sometimes it gets ignored. This unpredictability can be addictive. But non-posters often find this system emotionally destabilizing. They don't want their mood or self-worth influenced by algorithms and other people's scrolling habits. They prefer more stable, predictable sources of validation. Many non-posters describe themselves as observers rather than participants. They find human behavior fascinating, and social media provides an incredible window into how people present themselves, what they value, how they seek connection. But observing and participating feel like fundamentally different activities to them. They'd rather study the phenomenon than become part of it. Their outside perspective allows them to understand social media as a cultural phenomenon rather than just a personal communication tool. They notice patterns that regular users might miss. They see how posting habits change during different life events, how people use their feeds to work through emotional issues, how the same person can present completely different personas on different platforms. Perhaps the most interesting aspect of non-poster psychology is their relationship with authenticity. They often express concern that regular posting would change how they experience life itself. Instead of living moments fully, they worry they'd start evaluating experiences based on their posting potential. Instead of processing emotions privately, they might begin performing their feelings for an audience. Research has shown that people who frequently post about experiences often remember them differently than those who do, and the act of curating and sharing can alter how memories form and how meaning is assigned to events. Non-posters intuitively understand this and choose to protect their internal experience from external influence. They value what psychologists call intrinsic motivation over extrinsic motivation. They want to pursue interest, develop relationships, and create meaning based on internal satisfaction rather than external recognition. Social media posting, even when well-intentioned, introduces an element of external validation that can complicate this intrinsic motivation. Yet, these individuals aren't necessarily antisocial or disconnected. Many maintain rich, meaningful relationships and engage actively in their communities. They simply prefer forms of connection that feel more direct and less mediated. They'd rather have dinner with friends than post about dinner with friends. They'd rather call someone directly than broadcast their thoughts to everyone simultaneously. Their silence in the digital world often speaks volumes about their values, their priorities, and their understanding of what authentic connection actually requires. There's something profound happening in the minds of people who choose digital silence. They've developed what researchers call intentional resistance to social media culture. This isn't passive avoidance or simple disinterest. It's an active psychological stance that requires constant decision-making in a world that assumes participation. Every day, non-posters make dozens of micro-choices that regular users never have to consider. When something funny happens, they don't reach for their phone to capture it. When they have an opinion about current events, they don't feel compelled to share their perspective. When they achieve something meaningful, they don't automatically think about how to announce it online. These small moments of restraint add up to an entirely different way of experiencing life. Non-posters often exhibit what's called high internal locus of control. They believe their happiness and success come from their own actions rather than external validation. This makes them naturally resistant to systems that require other people's approval for emotional satisfaction. They've learned to generate their own sense of worth independent of likes, comments, or shares. But there's also something deeper at work. Many non-posters describe feeling protective of their experiences. They want to keep certain moments sacred, untouched by the performative demands of social media. A beautiful sunset belongs to them and the people they're with, not to their followers. A personal breakthrough deserves private reflection, not public celebration. This protective instinct reveals a sophisticated understanding of how sharing can sometimes diminish the very thing being shared. Consider how differently these minds process emotional experiences. When something significant happens in their lives, regular posters often feel an almost immediate urge to externalize it, to translate the internal experience into shareable content. Non-posters tend to sit with their emotions first. They process privately, reflect deeply, and only share when they've fully integrated the experience into their personal narrative. This creates a different relationship with their own emotional life, one that's less reactive and more contemplative. The social pressure surrounding this choice is immense. Non-posters constantly navigate assumptions about their absence from social platforms. People assume they're technologically incompetent, socially anxious, or deliberately mysterious. Family members question why they missed posting about important events. Friends wonder if their lack of online presence means they don't care about maintaining relationships. Yet many non-posters develop sophisticated strategies for managing these expectations. They become masters of private communication, reaching out directly to people who matter to them. They show care through actions rather than public displays. They maintain relationships through phone calls, text messages, and face-to-face interactions. Their social skills often become more refined because they can't rely on the casual connection that social media provides. There's also a temporal aspect to their psychology worth exploring. Non-posters often think in longer time horizons than regular users. While social media operates on immediate gratification cycles, non-posters consider the long-term implications of their choices. They ask questions like, how will I feel about this post in 5 years? What kind of digital legacy am I creating? How does this online version of myself relate to who I actually am? This long-term thinking extends to their understanding of privacy itself. They recognize that privacy isn't about hiding shameful secrets. It's about maintaining personal agency over your own narrative. When you don't post regularly, you control how much of yourself you reveal and to whom. You can choose to be mysterious or transparent depending on the relationship and the context. This flexibility feels psychologically valuable to minds that prize autonomy. The relationship between non-posters and fear of missing out is particularly interesting. While many people assume that staying off social media would increase anxiety about missing events or experiences, the opposite is often true. Non-posters frequently report feeling less anxious because they're not constantly exposed to curated highlights from other people's lives. They judge their own experiences against their own standards, rather than against the carefully selected moments others choose to share. This creates what psychologists call comparative immunity. Without constant exposure to others' achievements, travels, relationships, and successes, non-posters maintain a more stable sense of their own life satisfaction. They're not trapped in the endless cycle of comparison that drives much social media engagement. But perhaps most significantly, non-posters often develop a different relationship with attention itself. They learn to find satisfaction in being fully present for experiences without needing to broadcast them. They can enjoy a concert without filming it, appreciate a meal without photographing it, celebrate an achievement without announcing it. This presence-oriented mindset often leads to richer, more immersive experiences. In choosing not to share their lives, non-posters often end up living more fully. They're not distracted by the meta-experience of crafting posts about their experiences. They're not splitting their attention between living a moment and documenting it. They can be completely absorbed in whatever they're doing without the secondary layer of social media consideration. This absorption capacity extends to their relationships as well. When non-posters spend time with others, they're typically more present and engaged. They're not thinking about which moments would make good posts or how their interactions might translate to social media content. They can listen more deeply, respond more authentically, and connect more genuinely because their attention isn't divided. Yet their absence from social platforms creates unique challenges in modern social dynamics. They miss informal invitations that are only extended through social media. They're unaware of social events organized primarily through platforms they don't use. They may seem disconnected from group conversations that reference shared online experiences. This social cost is real, and non-posters must actively work to maintain connections through alternative channels. The psychology of digital abstinence reveals something profound about human nature itself. These individuals have found ways to resist one of the most compelling behavioral systems ever created. They've maintained their agency in the face of platforms designed to capture and hold attention. They've preserved their privacy in an age of voluntary surveillance. And they've chosen depth over breadth in their social connections. Their silence speaks to values that extend far beyond social media preferences. They've prioritized internal validation over external approval, authentic experience over curated performance, and private growth over public recognition. In a world increasingly defined by digital presence, their absence has become its own form of presence. So maybe the question isn't why some people don't post on social media. Maybe it's why the rest of us do. Because in understanding the psychology of digital silence, we discover something beautiful about human choice. These quiet observers remind us that participation is optional, that presence doesn't require performance, and that sometimes the most authentic response to a noisy world is simply to listen. Whether you're a constant poster or a digital ghost, you're making a choice about how you want to exist in this connected age. And both choices reveal something profound about who you are.